if I remain curious in my leadership, in my approach to life, then I'm always wondering, I wonder why that person smirked at me, or I wonder why that person at Tim Hortons was so mean, or because I'm remaining curious, then I can avoid jumping into conclusions or being prejudiced about somebody, or because I'm curious, I want to learn. If I'm curious, I'm listening. If I'm curious, I'm asking questions. If I'm curious, I'm always learning.
Welcome to the It Matters podcast. I'm your host, Walter Perez, and let's dive in as we help you grow your mindset and elevate your leadership. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the It Matters podcast, another episode for you. And as always, I'm excited to introduce another guest. But as we get started, this is the It Matters podcast, and it's the podcast where we want to help you grow. We want to help you grow in your leadership, mindset, personal growth. We just want to make you a better leader. And so I'm excited that you're joining us once again. And maybe to start off, I want to remind all of you that if this episode impacts you, if it makes you think, if it adds value to you, can you share it? Can you add a comment? Can you tell us what you think? And there's probably somebody in your life that needs to hear this. And so do that favor for us, and it would mean a lot to us, to both of us, which brings me to the opportunity here to introduce DeenDeen Vedoya, who I am excited for all of you to get to know her, because she is married to Nate Vedoya. And for those of you who have been following our podcast, I had him on the podcast last year, and we chatted about a lot of different things. But this one's special to me too, having DeenDeen, because we want to chat about coaching, and there's a new offering that we're going to be exploring in the Leader Co. And I just think what you're about, DeenDeen, and your passion, your heart is amazing. And so thank you for coming on to this episode, and welcome to the It Matters podcast.
Wow, thanks. Well, you know what? I'm living my dream, because the moment I heard my husband say, guess what? Walter's going to get me on his podcast, quietly, I was like, I'm going to get invited one day. And so thank you for inviting me. It is an honor to be in this space with you, and just talk and hopefully bring value to what we're about.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you and I have joked that I'm your husband's new best friend, or he's my new best friend. And it's been such a blessing to have you guys as part of our family and our business, and just getting to know each other and doing life together. It's been awesome. And as I was thinking about this episode, you know, you describe yourself as a wife, a mom, a missionary, a coach, a friend, and a traveler, which is great.
Yes,
and I like how you put in there that you are you love your coffee and your savory foods out there, right?
Well, that's my Filipino background. We just love savory, salty, sour, all kinds of savory food, and coffee. I just got into it the last few years here, but just, you know, typical woman who wants to do her best, and just trying to look at places and spaces that could bring me more value, or I could bring value to wherever I am led to go. So
that's beautiful. I was chatting with your husband a little bit, and he was telling me that you love to sing. And he was saying that that's one of the first things that really caught his attention.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, when I was younger, actually, my real name, or my formal name, is Adele. I don't know if you knew that, but so, you know, formally, when people call me Adele, and they always say, can you sing like her? Well, probably not like her, but I did grow up in a home where my mom, she's the musician, and she just taught me and my brother, I have one brother, to sing and love music. And, you know, she always said, music is the language of the soul. So it's a big part of my life. I've kind of given that part of my life more for my kids to do, especially for, gatherings or parties or whatever. They just love to be on the mic. And, but yeah, singing is something that I love to do as well.
That's so cool. Well, Adele's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
So maybe help our listeners a little bit, because I did introduce you as DeenDeen.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that in the name here, it says DeenDeen.
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to walk us through why?
Sure.
You go with that?
Again, Filipinos are fond of repeating names or words, and it becomes their children's names. So, it's just a joke, but parents, when picking up names for their children, would throw pots and pans down the stairs, and whatever sound it makes, it would be their kid's name, kind of thing. So DeenDeen comes from my second name is Dean, and I couldn't say the name Dean, which is a combination of my two grandmas, and so I just started calling myself DeenDeen, and it became my name. So,
that's awesome. But
really, Adele, DeenDeen, whatever, or Princess, Your Highness, whatever suits you.
Whatever we're in the mood for.
That's right. Yeah.
That's funny because, as you know, I'm Latino.
Yes.
And one thing that I noticed in our culture that everybody likes to call people by their middle name.
Oh, okay.
And it just, Walter is my first name, which is funny that my mom didn't call me by my middle name. But everybody else, even when my kids were born, and I told her the full name, the first thing that came out of her mouth was, it was their middle name. And I'm like, no, we're calling them either first name.
Oh.
So
what is your middle name?
Orlando.
Okay. Well, you could go both ways, I guess, but Walter is
Orlando.
what you're known.
Yeah. So cool. I think Orlando is more of a Latino name than Walter, but hey, here we are. So tell me, one of your passions too, you have a counseling background.
I do social work, to be exact, and I'm actually on my second act, so to speak, in life right now, where I'm transitioning to a different space when it comes to what I do and the new projects that I'm a part of. But yes, helping people, being there for people, being on a journey with people in life's different seasons of their lives have been a passion of mine. I grew up as a minister's kid, so people serving it's just a second nature to me. So yeah, my background, also my future, I think will always include people. Yeah.
And I completely caught on to that very quickly, and that's why you and I have been chatting about what does coaching look like. And I think this conversation is going to really unpack why we're going to be pursuing and going in towards that direction. Yeah. But I just love that you care about people. And then I don't want it to just feel like it's a given, but why has people been such a priority for you? Not everybody, I think, gets that or has a passion for that.
Good question. Well, I think we have been, from the beginning of time, been created for relationship. The first book of the Bible talks about the creation. And in that, it talks about how a person should not be lonely, that there is another person suitable for him or her. And so I think just the way we're created and the way we've been designed by our Creator is for relationship. So that, it's not something that we discover along the way. It is what we need from the moment we're born. Secondly, personally, just learning from the 7 frequencies written by Erin McManus. Yeah. Apparently, I'm a healer, motivator, challenger. That's the space where my frequency or my communication is drawn from. Yeah. And so if you're that kind of person, it's natural, I suppose, and I've experienced it myself, to be really drawn to how people feel and knowing that it may not be perfect, but there's a better way to approach life. And I'm all over that. I want to be able to walk with people and really seeing them from this side to another side, which is, better outcomes. So for those 2 reasons, I think, we've been created that way, designed that way. And also it's where my frequency really lands. So I just naturally do it. Yeah. Well,
we'll do a quick little plug in here for any of you who haven't read that book, The 7 Frequencies of Communication. You have to check it out.
Yeah.
I think it's the new it's just a new book out there that really will help you elevate the way you not only communicate but connect with people.
That's right.
So with the healer frequency, is empathy and compassion kind of at the top of your list, or
right? That's where that's the frequency in which that's where I go to first. I don't go on solving problems right away, or, well, you know what, forget that pain that you're going through and there's a better future. I mean, I get there at some point, but I want to be able to, or I'm willing to go there with that person and maybe sit in that, situation first. And then, and when that person's ready, let's move forward and find hope. And there is hope, and find the next best step. So yeah, that's, and that's how I also hear someone who's a healer, so to speak. And that's how I know they care for me, when they really take time and say, have you ever experienced where you're walking down just the hallway and say, hey, how are you? And the person doesn't even look at you. They just go past by, and you're like, I really was going to answer that. But to me, that means, well, you asked, but you don't really care, do you? But for me, when I say, how are you? I really want to, let's talk about this, and I'm okay to spend that time with that person. So yeah.
Wow. That's good. This idea of not just staying on the surface level, like you desire to go deeper with people, and there's something powerful in that. I 100% agree with what you just said too, about even with Genesis. Like, I believe too that we were built for community, and that's why it's come up on this podcast a couple times. That's why I'm not worried about AI. Because AI, yes, it's going to improve our lives in a lot of different ways, and it already has, but it's not going to be able to replace connection.
You're right. I agree. Yeah. Right? And AI is not going to work unless we actually engage with it. So there's also that connecting that computer system, or what, I don't even know how it all works, but it needs something in order for it to be ignited. But that's relationship, so yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody listening, like, even with what we've just talked about in the first few minutes here, like, can you go deeper with people and be intentional? Can you, if you're going to ask, how are you doing? Can you complete that transaction, I guess? Don't just end it short, I guess.
And if you don't really want to know at that time, maybe you're running to another meeting, just say, hey, it's really good to see you. I hope we can catch up another time, or whatever. But that question, how are you really doing? I really save that for those moments where I really want to know.
Okay, so both of us have been talking about picking a word for this year, and I've been a huge advocate of this for a number of years now. And you told me your word. What word is that?
Yeah, so the word I actually got from our conversation with your wife and my husband there. We had a dreaming session, so to speak. I think the first week of January. We were fresh from, the holidays
just like
and
2
whatnot.
days in, I think.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoy that time. But the word is impact. And I was struggling before that because I couldn't find, everybody had a word. You had a word, Nate had a word. I'm like, I don't know what my word is. And it just came during that conversation, impact. And, having said that, I'm sensing and I'm feeling that it's my second act, so to speak, where okay, so I just read that within a story, like a theater or a play or something, the second act is at least 50% of the actual story. So if that's true, if it's a good bulk of my life, if this part of my life, this phase of my life is going to be at least 50% or more, depending on how long I live, then I want to really live that with purpose. I want to live that with some quality that I probably didn't even discover before. And so I want hopefully the rest of my life to have impact. And impact could be bad, it could be a negative or a positive. And I really want to pour into that positive space where I could bring and I could learn and all of that. But yeah, impact. And I'm still discovering all of what that means. But so thank you for giving me the word.
Well, no, and it came out of conversation. And there you go. It's important to be collaborative and have conversation and connect, right? Now, the amount of years that you've been working, doing ministry, I would argue that you've been impacting. So it's interesting to me that that's the word that you chose. But is it fair to say that you just want to level up a little bit. You want to be more intentional. You
Oh,
want to make sure you
wow.
don't miss it. Like you're not like starting a new journey of impact,
No,
but you're
yeah.
almost continuing it.
Wow.
But you're just leveling up is what kind of comes to mind.
That's
Does
right.
that make?
I agree with
Yeah.
you. And you are helping me get better at this more than you know, even at this very moment. So leveling up, like just honing in, getting better at my craft. Like, you know, if there was a specialist on whatever it is that I'm working on,
Yeah.
I want to be able to say, you know, I can help you with that. But that takes discipline and integrity and all of those things that, you know, if I really want to have that kind of impact, I can't just like leave it to whatever or just learn about life as it comes. No, I got to be like intentional and really, you know, in all aspects of life. So yeah, leveling up, like just being better at it. I mean, my kids, they think that my phone here, they said, Mom, can I have your phone? Because you don't even know how to use it. You know, and I'm like, no, it's my phone. I only know, like, just use it for whatever, right? But they're like, you have no idea what it can do. And so they would show me how, you know, all the things that this phone can do. And I'm going, I want that for my life. I want to unleash. And I know you love that word, unleash more of the potential of what it can do. If phone can do that, how much more my life that's more complex than a computer. And so that's that, and I'm excited. Like, there's no limit in that. There's no limit in getting better at this or improving at this. Yeah.
And I think we need to catch something here in this conversation that you're young still.
Oh, you did. And thank you.
You know, you're never too old, regardless of how old your kids are,
That's
how
true.
long you've been around. Like, there's always opportunities to continue to grow and improve, right? And that unleashing concept, impact, it just goes to show that we should all be encouraged by what you're saying, that, hey, it doesn't, up to now, if you're not satisfied where you're at or what you've done, then change.
That's
like,
right.
You can
have your second act. You know, I had the previous job I had or position I had. I thought I could just go on with that for years and years and retire with it. I was content. And then there was this discontent that started to happen. Not that I wasn't happy or I wasn't thankful, but there's just generating in me something, there's more. Right. And I think you stop living if you think that the best is done. Right. I want to say the best is yet to come. There's more to discover. There's more in this phone, you know, that I could unleash, so to speak. So that's where I'm at right now. So not that I've got it all. Like, I have no idea what the next step is really. But I do know that it's going to be better. But I got to go with it. Like, I need to be involved and engaged in that process and not just wait for it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is preparedness. I mean, you're preparing even though you're not 100% sure what the future holds, and really none of us really do, right? I mean, we trust in God that things are going to work out and that He's going to guide and lead. But there's a beautiful thing going on here that you're preparing. And maybe another phrase that comes into mind with what you said was mastering your craft. Like, you're really... because we can take for granted the skill sets we have or the opportunities we have, right? I mean, in your line of work, whether we're talking about your counseling or the missionary work that you've done with Nate, like, you're around people. You guys are impacting, but we can kind of get comfortable there and forget that actually there's a lot more that I can do here. Well,
I think there's also a principle that follows that. When you're faithful with this, maybe it's smaller or the scale is not the principle of the path goes, well, I'm going to entrust you with more. And I think it's not because we're awesome people or whatever. It's because we have an awesome God that we follow. We happen to believe that. And He's just opening doors of opportunities, and it's requiring us to do better. It's requiring us to engage more. I can't stay the way I was and be entrusted with this big assignment that's in front of me. So it means using, using the tools that I have and getting better at it, whether it's, I just learned a new thing about calendaring, and I'm like, whoa, it's changed my whole week, and I'm getting better at that.
Right.
And so, like I said, if I dream big, I have to be prepared for that. I can't attempt to do those big things unless I'm doing the hard work of, getting better at what I do. Yeah.
And so you have a faith background, and I know we're throwing a lot of phrases like God and victory.
Yes.
And I don't want anybody to be discouraged if they don't believe in God.
Right.
I mean, I want to encourage you to be an open-minded and realize that we're sharing from a perspective of experience and what we have seen to work for us. And so whoever's listening to this, don't shut this episode off because you heard the name God, right? Because we still believe that everybody has human potential.
That's right.
And we're all on a journey.
That's right. Yeah.
And so just take your time and go on a discovery journey of what that looks like to tap into your human potential. But
that's good. I like that word, journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about impact, I mean, I think it's related to people, right? I mean, that's where the impact really, I guess, comes alive, or it shows. And one thing, and I think you would agree with me, when people are involved, it's not always a walk in the park. It's not always easy, right? Like,
yeah, you got it. Yeah.
And so I think it would be beneficial for us to chat a little bit. Like, I would like to hear from your perspective. Like, what has been one of the most maybe challenging things, or maybe you got a couple of things on mind when it comes to working with people? Because in the leadership business, it's people. People are involved. And I would hate to see people going like, oh, I'm not, the moment things get hard with people, like I'm out. But I think leadership comes alive when we deal with challenging and difficult scenarios and situations.
That's right. Well, having said that, relationship is what we're designed for, or what we've been created for.
Yeah.
I would ask, for example, Nate, my husband, and I would come home and say, hey, what was the best part of your day? Oh, it's people. I just love people. Well, what was the hard part of your day? It's people. It's hard to work with people. But yeah, there's really no guarantee. When you work with people, it's not like they're going to, well, you know what? You made me feel better. Now I'm going to give you my, there are times when you just take the risk of loving on people, walking with people, regardless of whether they're going to pay you back. It's a risk no matter what. But the risk is greater if you don't invest.
Wow.
The risk is greater when you don't engage and when you don't pour into someone, because isolation or living for yourself is not an option, I don't think.
Yeah.
So yeah, no matter, like, the source of our grief, the source of our joy, people, but we don't stop pursuing that. Because that's where we find our the purpose of why we do the things we do.
Yeah.
We engage in, whether it's through telephone or computer or whatever, it's people that we work with. And so knowing how to work with people and being a person of a healer or a safe space is a good endeavor to continue to pursue, because that's when you find your, what would be the worst thing that could happen, I think, is if I'm climbing this mountain, I got all my gear and I'm ready to go. I've worked out and now I'm ready to forge this mountain. And then only to find out once you climb, it's the wrong one.
Right.
Like, that would be so devastating. But I have found, we've been in ministry maybe almost 30 years altogether, even before I got married. And there's just satisfaction in knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to do, what you've been created to do. And for me, it happens to be with people. And no matter how painful or hard, it's also the source of my joy and my satisfaction.
So I love the illustration you just gave us about, climbing this mountain and then finding out that, it was the wrong one. I'm wondering if you would agree, because I've heard it said that part of leadership is that we want to bring people with us. So the other devastating part of that would be that if you do climb this mountain, potentially even the right one, and you're up there alone and you haven't brought anybody with you.
Oh, I don't even know how to eat by myself. I was telling Nate about that today when he asked me, what'd you have for lunch? I said, I was eating by myself. I want to be able to share our experience and not just tell you about my experience.
Right.
Like one of my dreams is to go to just travel the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to call my husband and say, guess where I went today? I want to be able to say, I'm glad that you're with me on this.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're together in this, whether it's in your marriage or a friendship or a team. When you're with people, I don't, maybe you know who said this, but you could go further faster when you're with people. And
I think it was an African proverb, but
was it?
Yeah.
I mean, like if you think about it, yeah, I could go on my own, and sometimes you feel like it's faster, and you could get things done faster, and there's a place for that. But when you're in a journey with people, there's a dynamic that you can't fabricate on your own by yourself, like looking at a mirror and go, yes, I'm on, doing this by myself, but it's always worth it. It's harder, takes a lot more work. Or pouring into someone, even if they get the applause and you're just at the back applauding the same person, but getting that person on a higher level and you've helped them get there. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because we did it together. Even if I didn't get the promotion, you know what I mean?
I'm glad you pointed that out. I think it's we should acknowledge that it is hard work. And it's okay to feel like it's difficult, it's challenging. I would say, like in leadership, like if you desire to be in leadership and lead people, that if there wasn't any challenges, they wouldn't need a leader, right? And so I think we need to understand that part of leadership is we're going to be problem solving, solution seeking, and there's going to be challenges, and nobody likes it, but it is part of that journey.
That's right. Yeah.
So do you, I mean, I know the answer to this because I got to know you, but then you obviously advocate for this idea that people should have friends, mentors, a guide, a coach. How have you seen that play out in maybe in your life or in the things that you've done? Like, how important is that?
Well, it is important because everybody's got blind spots. There's a place for counselors, for mentors, for coaches, specifically about coaches or guides. I remember growing up, my dad would say, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And sometimes I got to touch the stove. But when you have that guide, there are things that you could avoid. Unnecessary pain because someone has said, well, there's going to be rocky road or the highway stops there and you're going to fall into a cliff, and I have experienced, especially during the toughest times of my life, to have a coach that says, well, how about, have you tried it this way? Or questions that are pressing and sometimes annoying. Why are you asking me this? But really the point was to get me to a place where I there's an answer right there, and they're helping me get to that point where it's a better place for me, because it's really where that potential, and it's just having someone open those doors because they're all locked or whatnot. And many a times I have made better decisions because my coach was able to help me unpack things that I would never had because of my pride, or my culture says, well, that's only for the weak. Well, who do you don't need that, or you just do it, just, and not taking stock of what you have. Back with my culture, you don't even think about it. You just do it, and you don't need advice. You learn from experience, basically. But it's like, even with our kids, it's ultimately your decision. It's your life, our adult kids. But if you listen to this sound advice or this coaching process, it really can save you some heartaches. So so that's why I think it's important.
I like how you said it. We can learn from experience. But one thing that I have learned, and it's that it's better if we can learn from other people's experiences.
That's right.
And that's what a coach and a mentor, a friend can do in your life, right? I honestly feel like a broken record sometimes on this podcast, because I want to encourage people to find a coach, a mentor, a friend. Like, get yourself in a posture of humility, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, it's not a sign of weakness.
No.
Like, there's wisdom in saying, hey, can you come along? And I like how you started by saying that we have blind spots.
Yeah.
Right. And a coach or a mentor, they almost have this view from above that we can't see, and they can going, I heard it put this way about if you had your coach in a helicopter and you were driving, and they're telling you where to turn so you can avoid rush hour or traffic.
Why not take it?
And over here, you might be like, well, no, it doesn't make sense that you're making me go right into this alley. And they're going, trust me, I can see the bigger picture.
Right.
And maybe because of your pain, your pride, whatever it is, you're not seeing clearly. And so having people in our lives like that can be such a blessing.
Yeah, informally, I have gained so much from that kind of relationship or that kind of approach.
Right.
My last coach, her thing was, I want to get you to the heart of the problem or what really is in your heart. I've learned from some very good coaches that we make goals for two reasons. One is because we're guilty about something, or that number two is that we're ashamed about something. So guilt is what I think of me, and shame is what I think people think of me.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so we make goals because of those two things. But if we make goals beyond that, we can get past that or get over it or whatever it means, get healing from it, then we can actually get to the heart. What is really your why? Where do you really want to go? What really is in there that we need to unleash? But sometimes it's hidden beyond those two things, guilt and shame. And so my coach, the last time I was going through something very personal and very just horrendous. It was so painful. I was focusing on this one thing, but she was able, because of her questions and her ability to press in, I discovered, I was already there, but unpacked the thing that was really hindering me was this. Yeah. And that was the heart of it. But I started with, well, I'm guilty of this and I have shame about this. But growth means, I may have those two things, but getting past that, or even with those two things, I'm able to see the heart of the problem and then move forward to the next step and really see the potential is, wow. Whew. And because of that, I will always seek advice, sound advice, or coaching, because I really don't want to go. If I'm going to Vancouver, but my direction is Toronto, guess what? Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
100% agree. I can attest to coaching and mentorship in my life where it's helped me break through. I can think of scenarios where I was playing a comparison game, or I think all of us have some sort of pain or trauma in our lives from our past, right?
Yeah.
And I remember there was a phase in my life where I was trying to do things to prove somebody wrong. And indirectly, I'm now living my life in this box just for that, and forgetting that, wait, no, there's so much more to my future, to my life, that I don't even have to go prove this person right or wrong. That's not the point of my life, right? I can get stuck in that. And I love how you said, you can break through the shame and the guilt, and there's freedom on the other side.
Oh, so much freedom, right? Yeah. But that's the hard work. And some people get there maybe on their own, but unlikely, because it's very dark and it's very disorienting. And you get lost. You say you could spend the rest of your life unboxing or not unboxing something, and you're just leaving it there, and you think that this is the purpose of your life. But having someone, in Ecclesiastes, it says a strand of 3 cords is stronger. And so when you're able to, I have different levels of coaches or people that I go to, my go-to people, and different levels of it, or different seasons in my life. And it has been very good. Yeah. I have avoided many things financially, in my marriage, in my parenting, in all kinds of, in my career, because there were people that poured into me, whether it was a formal relationship or it was just, connecting with people on a daily basis, so to speak. Yeah. Or sort of thing.
Wow. Now, I mean, you have the benefit, I guess we will call it, of having a spiritual background, right? I mean, you've done a lot of ministry.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we can go on without talking about that aspect, because you have experience with that. Do you think in society today we have a lack of focus on soul care? Or maybe we can call it something else, but taking care of our spirit or soul. Because a lot of us might try to break through by dealing it in different ways.
Yeah.
But there is something about saying, hey, like, how's your spirit?
Wow, what a really good question, because it's a question that is kind of agonizing. It's just there, whether you're about to go to sleep and it's on your mind, or you're waking up and it's on your mind. So it's something that none of us can escape, because we are, physical, we have mental capacities, we have emotional. There's also that soul component that everyone has. And so, I mean, we don't have to look far to see that there is this epidemic, I guess, of exhaustion with people. And like, no matter how much vacation they have or how much nap they take, there's still a restlessness. I try to avoid, sometimes not that I avoid, but I already can predict if I ask someone in my life that I know well, and I go, how are you today? And I already know they're going to say, I'm just so tired. I am so tired. And I think it's not like, oh, it's more like you're tired. It's more like, you too? Like, we can understand that language. I am so tired. Tim Keller, whom I adore, he's gone now. He's passed away, I think, last year, something like that. But he calls it the murmur of the soul, where, yes, there's physical rest that we need to do. That's why within the day, if you have an 8-hour shift, you have 15 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon, and maybe half an hour at lunch. Not because, those are standard, procedures, standard laws, but because it's natural for a body to need to rest so that you can produce more. We've seen it and we know it, we've experienced it. So that's very, very important for physical rest. There's mental rest where have you ever experienced a day where all you ate was junk food? And when it's dinner time, I'm sure your kids have experienced this. My kids have. When it's time to eat, you don't have the appetite, but you didn't really eat anything. All you've eaten was junk, but there's no more appetite because you feel full. And so sometimes our minds, we haven't really thought or done anything necessarily that, we haven't really solved any problem, but we've been scrolling on our phones, or we've been just inundated with things. It's kind of like, not all are bad, but it's kind of like junk food. It's good, but if you have too much of it, then your brain feels exhausted. So at the end of the day, you're like, I can't even talk to my spouse. I don't have time to speak to my kids, right? And so there's that tiredness, but there's this murmur of the soul. And St. Augustine says that we are restless, and our souls are restless until we find rest in you. And that you is the creator. It's kind of like, again, my phone, I don't work for Mac, for iPhones or anything, but this phone, if I want to find who made it, I could figure it out. I could find, who made it, what was the purpose of it, and all of that. But for me as a person, as a human being, if I want to know what my purpose is, I will go back to who created me and find my purpose in that, right? So that restlessness, we can only find that rest with that, what you're talking about, soul care. And there's this murmur, like Tim Keller calls it, that it's just there, and it's never going to rest unless you find rest. And that's what, in the Jewish culture is Sabbath, where you find time to heal, when you find time to worship, when you find time to declutter, when you find time to, take stock of your life, what is important, what is not important, essential. I mean, I think COVID helped us. If there's anything good out of that season of our world in our history, is it allowed us to take inventory, what was essential. And I think now that the pandemic is gone, we kind of move on. But really, if we learn anything from that, we can do that as part of the rest of our soul. That for those ladies, girlfriends out there, that no manicure or pedicure spa day, although they're really great, it's never going to be enough for us, or a vacation or a cruise be enough for us to get that rest. It's kind of like the work underneath the work that, beyond. Have you ever been on a vacation and you came back even more tired?
Yeah.
Right? So, but I can have that Sabbath even in the middle of my busy day, because it's my soul that's resting.
Yeah.
It's that soul that's resting. And so I could be in the middle of a crisis and still feel rested. But that's another, a whole thing there. Another path we can go to. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I love it that you shared all that and went there, because from the leader co perspective, the business, that is something that we want to explore more of. And how can we help leaders and individuals out there to understand the power of rest? That's a conversation for another time. But the reality is that we can wander through life and be doing so many different things, and even things that are not meant for us. And I love where you're directing us to finding a meaning, purpose. And when we understand like what we were created for, as I've heard it put, you were created on purpose for a purpose. So like, what does that look like? And there's rest that comes in that, because you're doing what you were meant to do.
Wow.
And so I just thank you for giving us such a wealth of wisdom in that, and reminding us of why that's so important.
Yeah. So even an activity of the practice of, when you sit down and you calendar your weeks and your months, I'm learning right now, and my husband's teaching me how to do this, is to build your rest, like put in your calendar when you're going to rest, whether it's, just a little break or actual Sabbath, and then build on top of that what you're going to do, because it's typically the other way around. Well, all these things that I need to do, and then I got to rest somewhere sometime. But we're intentional about that rest. Then we would know then what to say no to and what to say yes to, and we would just have a sharper strokes in life, where I have time to sharpen my saw, and instead of I'm doing 10 million things and nothing is working, but taking that time to rest, that Sabbath, sharpens your saw so that you can do those things and actually have an outcome that's like, wow. But it's because you're serving, or you're doing out of your being. You're doing out of your being, and not just doing out of deadlines and all those things that our culture has taught us to live. But if we build our rest, and then out of that we do, I think there's greater satisfaction. I'm testing it right now in my life, and it's working so far. And Walter, for your audiences or our listeners that are, I could speak for the women of the world. Women are notorious for this. Like, we're guilty when we're taking a break. It feels like if I'm sitting down, I have so many things to do, I shouldn't sit down. But really, in my sitting down, so to speak, it's when I get better at my craft. It's when I'm resting. It's when, case in point, when you're sleeping well, your body is resting and you're rejuvenating for tomorrow, so you could be productive. So you could, contribute more. But the society says you don't have no time to rest. You got deadlines. Come on, let's go. But really, that's a lie, because in our resting, we have more of our being and our doing even more enhanced.
And our culture, right, has been guilty of pushing that on us from a perspective of like, hustle, work hard, do hard things, and go. Like, if you're going to accomplish anything great, you got to put in the hours. And the reality is that maybe it works for a little bit, but long term, longevity wise, horrible advice.
That's why there's burnout. Right?
Yeah,
we're so interested in our doing more than our being. But in our being comes out are doing, that is quality work. That is work that is legacy work, where your children's children will see, oh, this is what has been laid for me because you knew how to rest. Isn't that interesting?
That's beautiful.
You can be and you can do more because you've rested a lot. In fact, someone wise said to me, I have to have a better memory because I should be really telling people who they are. But someone wise told me, the more you're busier and the more you have influence, the more you're invited to do that talk or to lead that company or whatever, the more you should rest. What? Like, it's like, instead of the other way around where, well, I'm too busy now, I'm the whatever of this business or whatnot. No, actually, the more important, so to speak, you are, the more you should take a break.
Wow.
It's so counterculture.
So counterculture, so counter for the go-getter, for the entrepreneur out there.
That's
that
right, yeah.
is a doer and wants to get done.
Yeah.
This may not make sense, but anybody listening to this legitimately needs to pause this for a moment and think, like, how am I utilizing rest in my life? And it's not counterintuitive. It's not a bad thing. In fact, it's going to be one of the best things you ever do if you do it well.
It's an investment. You're right. When you rest well, you do well, right? And it's an interesting phenomenon because you think that, well, like when you're sleeping, my husband thinks it's a waste of time. And it's just a joke that he says to us. But when you sleep, that's when you actually get revived, because tomorrow is another day, right? But yeah, like this idea of working, not just working in your craft, but working on your craft that could multiply, again, that scenario or that illustration of sharpening your saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we can bring things into, like, why saying no is important, knowing what we're saying yes to, delegating, focusing on what we do best. There's so much teaching out there on that, but it needs to start with that value of saying rest is important. And you're not, for the guys out there, the men out there that think that it's macho to say I don't rest and I just go. I don't think you're being macho.
Yeah, you're right.
I think you're being unwise.
Yeah, when my husband goes away for his retreat, I love it when he goes away on his retreat. Not only because I get to do what I want when he's gone, but the projects I've been wanting to do. But when he comes back, he's just like, and it's like this wonder that we lose when we're just every day, with the grind of things. But this wonder when he sets aside time and he journals and he does all those disciplines that have really made him a better leader, a better father, a better husband. I look forward to those times when he comes back and he goes, guess what?
Yes.
And it's out of his rest, it's out of that moment where he took Sabbath.
Yes.
And he took the time to work on his craft. So, yeah.
I feel the need to say right now that if anybody's listening and they're hearing this conversation and going, but I don't know how to rest, or you don't know me, or you don't know my life, I think you need to reevaluate. And going back to one of our previous points, you need to ask for help. Which makes me wonder, I'd like to know your opinion on this. Do you think maybe one of the barriers that we need to overcome is the ability to ask for help?
Man, yes, especially when you're wrong, but you have so much pride to say no. This is the way to do it. But I think good leaders, good coaches, or people that are more seasoned. The more seasoned they are, the more humble they are. In saying, I didn't know that. I have a mentor, Nathan and I have the same mentor. His name is Paul Johnson. And I just admire him because he's supposedly retired. But the more he gets mature or older, the more he wants to learn. Like he's always picking up a book or always learning from someone. He learns from me. I'm like, what can I teach you? But really his posture of always learning, always listening, is very admirable. So I heard a story one time about a brilliant man who maybe like a rocket scientist or someone like that. He goes to a party with his wife, and they're chatting with other people from different specialties, and he's just listening the whole time, asking questions, and his wife is looking at him and kind of like, say something, and he just continued on listening. And then and just it was a good night. And on their way home in the car, the wife was like, "What's the matter with you?" And he's like, what did I do? And she said, "You're one of the most brilliant men I know. Why couldn't you say anything to those guys? Like, you could have said something, your opinion or whatever." And he simply said, "Well, I already know what I know. I want to know what they know." And however that story was told to me, I will never forget that. I think there's this art of listening, which is really learning, that we can relearn and learn. And a good coach can do that when you're able to learn. When you're able to listen. And so, yeah.
And that's why I probably would just throw in there why asking questions for the purpose of growing and learning is so important. Like there's power in that, right? So I wanted to shift just a little bit. It still goes along with everything we're talking about, but you want to advocate for marriages in women, and you're passionate about that. And I would love to just unpack that a little bit. Well, let's start with marriage. How has that been such an important factor in your life, and why do you care so much for that?
Well, first of all, it's our 25th year anniversary this year.
Congratulations!
So I must care enough that it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So why do I care? I think the fabric of our society begins with that unit. That home, whether it's a healthy space or a really hard space, it influences where you go, where you begin there. Your story starts within your home. And so an advocate for strong marriages, healthy marriages, I would give my life to that, because the influence and the impact is through generations. I don't know, as I was raising the kids, Nathan and I were raising the kids, who would be, what they will become. Yeah. But for whatever I could give them, whatever we were able to give them, maybe not riches or gold or, but it was a healthy marriage that their father and I were striving to have. And, there was one night where I was looking at my three kids. I have two adult kids, 21 and 19, and then a 16-year-old. This is a couple of years ago, where they were just kind of, hanging around in the kitchen and teasing each other and, just being siblings. And I just looked up and I go, I'm so glad I didn't give up during the years where I could have. I had enough reason, or Nate and I, it was just too much or too hard to move forward, because I would have, for more than this reason, but I would have missed out on that moment where my kids were just being themselves. And this home that, again, I allude to the Lord, to God, that gave us by his grace, been able to create together with my husband. I'm just so glad I didn't give up, because it's just this beautiful picture of, I couldn't see that when I was in my 20s, when the kids were small, when life was tough, and when we were living paycheck to paycheck or whatever hardships we had. Because quitting is always too early to quit, and whenever you feel like that, it's always too early. No. One more push, and I could say, by experience, and now as I continue on with this second act thing that I'm saying, it's really worth it.
Yeah.
Doing life together with my best friend, and just, we were looking at each other and we're going, does it really feel like 25 years? It just feels like we just started. But to be able to do life together,
Yeah.
And conquer, whatever obstacles there are in front of you. And it's not in perfection. Gosh, no. You've met my husband. And I'm not perfect, but oh my gosh, but if there's any fight that I would fight for, this is one of them. This is the fight that is worth it.
Wow. I strongly believe, especially with the whole leadership development thing, I've said often that leadership starts in the home. And this is exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
What you just covered there. We're not talking about, some reading a book or some strategy. No, like this idea of, we need to lead ourselves and we need to grow as individuals. But when we come together in a marriage and we build a home, the legacy that you've been talking about in your children, when leadership starts in the home and it's done well, we don't need to really worry too much about everything else. That's because it'll ripple. The impact will go
overflow.
Yeah. And so I really appreciate your heart and the way you describe that, because I think you nailed that really nicely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I mean, it's hard work. If there's any hard work that we could describe as part of our life, is marriage. I mean, just thinking about it, but also the fruit, the sweetness of, the longer you stick to it, the more sweeter it becomes. Yeah.
Wow. So, we started talking in this episode about, we're going to be collaborating, working together. You're going to be doing some coaching.
Oh, so excited. Yes.
And that comes out of this passion that you love investing in women, working with women, inspiring them, all that. Tell me a little bit about the heart behind that.
Women, besides my children, women are my favorite people. And Nate too. But women are very unique, how we've been created. We have unique needs. We have unique seasons of life, unique in, where we're at, whether it's motherhood or, a career woman, or it's just so many sides to this diamond of what a woman is. And so I am just so glad for the opportunities, the doors that are opening. And I think when we unleash the potential for a woman, whether it's in her, career change or motherhood or whatever it may be, they're really an asset to our society, because we are loyal, we are hardworking, we are emotional, we are all of that, but we just want to be real and contribute to that. And so with all of those things, that's one of my, I'm discovering what it means, what the different aspects are, but really helping or being on a journey with someone so that they can unpack or unleash those things that are hidden in their hearts, and ask pressing questions so that they can get there. Maybe not with ease, because it could take work, but could get there in this lifetime and feel the fulfillment, living the life of fulfillment, and also helping them climb that right mountain. Yeah.
Would you say that seeing somebody or a woman or a couple living a life of fulfillment is probably one of the most rewarding things in helping people, or would you add something to that?
Oh, yes. One of the most rewarding things that would give spring to my step. And that's probably why we keep doing it. We keep showing up, we keep being there for people. One of my joys, being in the community or engaging with people is walking with them in all seasons of life, where you could say, I remember when you didn't have a child and you were praying for one, or you had issues of, medical issues, and then and now you're on baby number 2, and the growth that they've gone through, or in your case, more than that. But to be able to walk with people in seasons of life, that's an honor.
You're right.
That's an honor, because that means you're planting your life. You're there with them when it's messy. You're there with them when they need help. You're there with them to cry with. And I will do it all over again for anybody. I will do it over and over again.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You've given us a lot to think about and so much wisdom. Thank you so much. I am wondering though, is there a leadership principle? You value mentorship and coaching. Maybe there was a piece of advice that was given to you that you've hold dear and that you could share with us.
One of my best friends, her name is Tiffany. She lives in the States, in Louisiana. She's so brilliant. But one of the things that she said one time, and it was just in passing, it wasn't even like, listen to this. It was more like, you know what, and it just came as we were chatting. She said, remain grateful and curious. If you're grateful, the air you breathe, the lunch you had today, the fact that we are, the freedom we have, if we're grateful, it's hard to complain when you're grateful. Right? It's easier to complain when you're complaining.
Yeah.
And curiosity. I have misunderstood many people before because I jumped into conclusion. Oh, you do this because you're like this, or you are this because you're from that culture or whatever. But if I remain curious in my leadership, in my approach to life, then I'm always wondering, I wonder why that person smirked at me, or I wonder why that person at Tim Hortons was so mean, or because I'm remaining curious, then I can avoid jumping into conclusions or being prejudiced about somebody, or because I'm curious, I want to learn. If I'm curious, I'm listening. If I'm curious, I'm asking questions. If I'm curious, I'm always learning. So it just doesn't seem like it has anything to do with leadership, gratefulness, and curiosity, but really it's a good place to be, because you're always, even when I'm having an argument with my husband, I'm curious, I wonder why he's having a bad day. It could avoid a potential argument that goes, another way. So yeah, those are the two things.
Beautiful. I mean, I'm going to add here and say that it has everything to do with leadership.
In
reality,
that's good. Yeah,
right. I think it has everything to do with that, and if we could spread that message, what you just told us, and infiltrate it into people's homes, businesses, whatever they're doing, I think they'll be better leaders for it. And so thank you for sharing that. That was well said. So you're on the It Matters podcast, and I love to ask my guest, what matters to you right now? That you've told us a lot of things today, and I think that we saw your heart, we saw where your mind is at and what you care for. But in this season of life right now, in this moment, is there something that kind of comes to the top and you want to say, okay, that matters?
Right. Well, I think it's always been the theme of my life, whether I was a young kid, when I finally realized I needed direction and purpose in my life, or when I was in college away from my family, or when I was going through all kinds of unfortunate events in my life when I was younger, or now. It's that Westminster Catechism, the chief end of man, is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. But it looks different in this season. So really, that's my overarching. I just want to glorify my Creator and also enjoy Him through my relationships, through the blessings, through all of that. But right now, I'm going back to that word impact, my second act, how it looks like. I'm discovering that every day. But I want my life to count. I only have one go at this. I can't come back and say, okay, I'm tired again because I messed up. I have not been perfect. I will never be perfect, but I want this life, the only one I have, to count because it matters, because I can impact. So yeah, those will be what's important to me right now. And that, you know what, gets me up every morning. Yes.
Wow. Well said. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart, and just I have no doubt that you've impacted our listeners today and what you've shared with, and I hope that everybody just takes time to reflect on what you've said. If somebody wanted to know more about you, or maybe get in touch with you, what would probably be the best way to do that?
Well, the leader would be. We'll see how would that be, how that would be, but we'll also put my email there for sure. And looking forward to more projects, more things ahead of us. Edmonton, it's a great city to discover, and I'm just so excited. I think, excited for what's coming.
Yep, and I'm excited for what you're passionate about and what you're going to do, and. For those out there who are listening, if this has sparked questions or curiosity or things in your mind and you want to direct some questions to us, please do. We would love to maybe respond to those in a future episode, or even we can get you in touch with DeenDeen with through email or whatever it is, so we can get those questions answered. And needing help, needing coaching, like any of that, like reach out, let us know what you thought about the episode. Like I started with this episode of saying, share, comment, pass this on to somebody. There's somebody in your life that needs to hear this. And what a great way to start the year. We're only 3 weeks in. It's not too late to restart, to adjust and pivot. So
that's right.
Be encouraged by what was being said today, and I just want to say thank you once again. You brought your best, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I definitely know that you've added a lot of value to people, and which is helping me on the mission with the It Matters podcast, to guide leaders to lead better, because as we always say around here, it's a win-win when the leader leads well.
That's great.
So, thank you again.
Thank you.